Hey, everybody, it's your girl, Dr. Rhonda M. Lawson, and I am with you on a Thursday. Now, every once in a while, I like to do a special show where I maybe do an author chat. I might talk to some authors. I might drop some knowledge, or I might just bring you something really cool. But tonight, I'm doing basically all of the above. Tonight, I want you to meet a very special young lady named Malika Stevely, and I think she disappeared on me. So, Malika, come on back to the StreamYard if you're still around. Not sure what happened. I lost you, but there she is. All right. Okay, so we are going to meet a very special author named Malika Stevely. She was the first winner of our For the Culture Book Awards. We did our inaugural contest last year. She was the first place winner. She did an amazing historical fiction book, and it's been doing really well, really well. And she actually recently turned the book into an audiobook. So what we're doing tonight is we're going to talk with her all about the story. If you like what you hear, we're going to be putting her links in the chat. If you're watching, and we special shouts out to the folks over who are watching us on TikTok, in TikTok land. I appreciate you guys. So if you see me looking in both places like this, I'm not cross-eyed, I'm not crazy. I want to make sure that I engage all of our audiences. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Miss Malika J. Stevely. She is the author of Song of Redemption. She is an award-winning author, and I am so proud that I was able to give her one of those awards that she has, because she is a multi-award-winning author. She did not come to play with y'all. Hello, Miss Malika.
Hey, how are you, Dr. Rhonda? Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for just being a friend to Meet the World Image Solutions.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a blast, especially getting to know many of the other authors who are affiliated with Meet the World Image Solutions, including yourself. And I mean, I speak very highly of everyone who you are associated with. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was nice. I appreciate that. Well,
Sure.
so like I was telling the audience, the reason why we're doing this special show tonight is because you are the first winner, the first place winner, and the first winner of the For the Culture Book Awards. And this was a new contest, but I wanted to do something that just gave Black fiction writers some shine, especially the ones who are holding our culture in a high regard. There are a lot of books out there, but not every book is really showing us in the best light. They don't all celebrate our culture, and your book just did all of the above.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the goal. The goal was to educate. The goal was also to tell unknown stories, and to especially shed light on our culture, and the how multifaceted our culture is. So yeah, so it was great to get that recognition and to be honored in such a huge way. So I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Now you've won a number of awards for this book. It wasn't just my contest. What are some of the other recognitions you've gotten? Yeah, we might need to turn the other one down a little bit. Yeah.
Turn what down? The volume or
Probably the phone.
my phone? Yeah, well it's off.
Oh,
So
boom.
hold up.
Okay.
Yeah, I can turn my volume down here on the computer. Um, but yeah, so I was a finalist in the International Book Awards and also the Next Generation Indie Book Awards as well. And it's just you hope to win, when you're entered and things like this, but to actually get the recognition and to actually have judges reach out and say how touched they were or how moved they were or how it even affected them to the point where they wanted to go and speak to some of the people within their family to, learn their stories and their backgrounds. I mean, that in itself is just, it's invaluable. So,
It absolutely is. And then you chose a really serious subject, one that required a lot of research. How long did it take you to just do the research before you even started writing?
ooh, okay. So, so the research itself took 10 years. I completed the book within 6 months.
Wow.
And the reason why it took so long in terms of the research was because there was a lot that I was just so determined to find. There were a lot of records I was determined to find, and a lot of it I could not find because of natural disasters that happened throughout Louisiana between 1932 and today.
Mm.
And so just trying to find those records, trying to speak to historical organizations, that took some time. It also took time for technology to catch up, you know, in order to find some of the information that I was looking for.
Mm.
And there were times also that I would put it aside because, like you said, it's such a heavy topic, and I needed to, I needed to collect myself in a number of
Yeah.
different ways. So yeah, so it took some time. And I used to be ashamed of saying that the research itself took about 10 years, but I'm not,
Oh,
because
you shouldn't be.
thank you. Yeah, everything happens in God's time, and everything happens when it's supposed to happen. And so, I've accepted that, I embrace that, and as an author, and with the subject matter, I needed to go through some things. I needed to become a
Right.
mom. I needed to understand, certain things that happened historically with our culture. I needed to know and really grasp those things. So yeah, so it just so happened that that's the amount of time that it took, and I'm extremely grateful for it.
Wow. Now, I think that one of the reasons why I'm glad you talked about that is because I don't think that people really have an appreciation for how long a project like this takes, especially when you're working hard to make this as authentic as possible. Because
Mhm.
you're talking about real events. This may be a fiction novel, but you're talking about real events. So,
Right.
this isn't something that you can just wake up one morning and say, "Okay, I'm going to write a historical fiction book."
Right.
Um, why was you're right, but you are writing a fiction book. So why was it so important to do this much research for so long?
It was important to get it right, because it is inspired by true events, and these some of the characters in the book were real people,
Yeah.
and I needed to get their story, tell their story the correct way, and to also, at least let them shine. I needed to have them speak through this book as well. So I couldn't just do things halfway. And that's part of my nature anyway. I just, when it comes to people and untold stories and voices that have been silenced, I feel it's my responsibility to allow that and to help them achieve that, whether they're alive or deceased. I'm a former journalist, and
Yeah.
when I was going out into the community and speaking to a number of people, from all walks of life, I needed to do my due diligence then. Well, it doesn't change when it comes to historical fiction either, when it's affecting real people. And it affects us too, as African Americans who may have had ancestors who were enslaved, or ancestors who were even free or lived in the South or in specific areas. So it affects all of us. So and I didn't know who all was going to pick up this book. There's so many there's so many stories out there that are written, and they're written incorrectly and incorrectly about us as a people, and they just kind of write us in a particular light. Well, no, it needs to be done right, and I needed to be the one to do it.
Come on, you better speak. So, what was the in your research? What was the thing
Mhm.
that surprised you most?
Ooh, there were a number of things that surprised me. One was when I was doing some research within. So the book takes place mostly in Lafayette, Louisiana,
Okay.
and it also takes place partially in New Orleans. When I was doing research, and I stumbled upon a narrative from a former slave, and she was actually born free. She lived in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and she was a part or her family. They were all free. They were Creole. They only spoke French. And this particular woman, she lived in. She went to a boarding school when she was
Okay.
about 10. Went to a boarding school in New Orleans, and a Catholic, and she was talking about when the kids, she and the other girls, took a field trip over by the docks, and and I'm thinking, why would the nuns take children to a field trip by the docks? Where are they supposed to learn?
Right.
Well, this woman, and I'm trying to remember her name, and I'll think of it in a second. But she ended up getting kidnapped. So she was kidnapped and enslaved, and she was enslaved for about 7 years. They ended up taking her to Missouri,
Mm,
and so she was, yeah, she worked on a plantation for quite some time, and then the slave owner, who was brutal to everyone else, realized that oh, well, there's something different about this one. She only speaks French, and so he allowed her to speak, or to teach his children French, and from that she was able to learn English, and she was ultimately able to gain her freedom. She was about 16 years old, I believe, by the time she was removed from that plantation. But I say all that to say, going back to the nuns, that just kind of had my wheels turning, and I'm thinking, what other instances might have happened within Catholicism, with nuns and priests and other areas. And it turns out they you had nuns, you had priests, you had the archdiocese. They owned slaves in a lot of
mm,
different areas. They sold slaves. A lot of the nuns sold slaves in order to maintain the convent. So that was extremely surprising to me, just from doing that research and learning all of this, learning about all the other monstrosities that have happened, that we don't even, many of us don't even think twice about. um
right.
so that in itself was extremely surprising to me.
Wow. That's just not something that you want to hear about our holy people.
Right, exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. And of course, from that it snowballed into what other organizations, companies, and so on and so forth owned slaves. So you had Barnum and Bailey Circus. You had many different
that's not
universities.
surprising that the circus owned slaves. I mean,
Hmm.
I can imagine them forcing them to take care of the animals, or being the test dummies, so to speak, or maybe being
Right.
the clowns, or something to that effect.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and it's disheartening, but those are also stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
Those are things, when we think of when we think of slavery, we always think of roots, or we always think of the plantation. We always think of 12 years a slave, but we don't think of other institutions that own slaves and benefited and still benefit to this day because of
Mm,
slavery.
that's interesting that you say still benefit from this day. Talk about that.
Mhm. Yeah, you had so you had, but I know I'm gonna make some people mad here, but you had Citibank, that they benefited from slaves. Now, I don't believe that they were called Citibank then, but you
Okay.
had Citibank, you had a number of other financial institutions that are still that are still that are still happening today because of slavery. And that was because, when people had their assets seized, we African Americans were part of the assets, along with homes, along with furniture, along with cattle. So so they benefited from it. You have universities that, you look around at some of these buildings, especially in the South. You look around at some of these buildings, Clemson, Harvard,
Mm,
Davidson College here in North Carolina. All of these institutions benefited from slavery. Those there's so many buildings that are still standing today because African Americans built those. There are so many people who worked, within the buildings, who were enslaved. So and kept the institution going. So there's just so much that's happening, and we don't even look around, and what when we might, but there's a lot of people who don't even realize that, yes, even though you weren't born at that time, your people and you might have benefited. Some people who are not of our hue, they might
mm,
say, yeah, well, that has nothing to do with me. Well,
right. Or that was in the past. Now, get over that.
exactly. So no, it's very hard to, go on certain to know that, and then look around and see some of these buildings. I can't get over it, especially if there was no reckoning, especially if there was no acknowledgement that these things happened. So
That's so sad. I know we're talking kind of around the book, but let's get into the actual storyline.
sure. Well, Song of Redemption tells the story of an elderly woman who returns to a plantation to identify the remains of her sister, whose body was found in the wall of the mansion on that plantation.
Mm, mm,
And amid a media frenzy, she begins to tell the story about, her sister, how she lived, how she loved, how she was a rented songstress within the county, and ultimately what led to her fate. And so, me being a former journalist, this I was aware of this story from a family friend, and it was the family friend it was her father who found this woman in the wall.
wow. Like her,
And
your real friend's real father.
correct. Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and I could still remember to this day. So my mom's a nurse, and she used to do home health care, and so she would befriend like so many people. That I think that was probably my favorite part of her job. And so she befriended Miss Louise, and they had these great conversations.
Hmm.
And Miss Louise, this is when I was living in Los Angeles. Miss Louise lived in Los Angeles as well. And so I remember my mom, talking about this woman, and she says, you know what, you have to meet Miss Louise. So I meet Miss Louise, and Miss Louise begins to talk about her life, living in Louisiana. And she was talking about her father, and how her father was a part of this construction crew, in New Orleans, and they were supposed to go into this mansion and refurbish this home. Well, he's in this home in one of the sitting rooms, and he's looking at the blueprint, and he's looking at, the entire room. He's noticing that there's this wall that's not on the blueprint. So
Mm.
he goes over to it. He sees this hair that's coming out the wall, which wasn't unusual at the time because they used to make plaster out of horse hair and all kinds of stuff. But this hair was like ours. This hair was curly. So he starts chipping at this wall, and he's noticing that it's getting longer and longer.
Wow.
And he tells everybody in the room, hey, there's something or someone behind this wall. And
Oh, that's
everybody's like,
scary.
yeah. So everybody's just freaked out at this point. So finally he's like, okay, I'm knocking it down. So he knocks it down, and then behind this wall, he sees this woman, a small woman. She's bound by her wrists, she's bound by her ankles, and her clothing looked like that of a servant from way back when. Now she was kind of in a mummified state.
Of
So it's
course, it's been
just,
years.
yeah, exactly. So he found her in 1932. This woman, Danielle, died in the 1800s, 1859. So
Wow.
she's in this mummified state, and they could tell by her slave badge and by her clothing that she was enslaved. And so as Miss Louise is telling me this, I'm looking at her, and she is still, so this woman was in her late 80s when she's telling me this. She's still so affected she was still so affected by what happened, and by her dad finding this woman, and the fact that they didn't know who she was. They weren't able to find anything on her, and they probably would not have. And so, and me as a journalist, I'm like, okay, what do I do with this information? I'm not going to just sit here and just let it just blow off in the wind. So this was one of those stories that just stuck with me for so long. And I've written, countless articles on other people, on other cultures, Holocaust survivors even. But I felt like I needed to write about this woman. I needed to at least try to find as much information as I could. So
Wow.
that Song of Redemption. I know that was a long answer to your
No, that
to
that
your
was that was an amazing answer. I mean, it needed to be a long answer. Uh,
question. But,
because I mean, I have a story that on my heart that I want to write one day, and because I think about the people who never had a chance to grow up and procreate. And they didn't have a chance to have children and have a lineage. And
mm,
sometimes I wonder what ever happened to those, or what could those people have become had they been
right.
able to live. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that you were able to tell this story.
Yeah, and what I would say is that it's never too late. It's never too late to tell that story, and it's admirable too. If you and anyone who wants to write about, people from the past who didn't have a voice. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I would definitely encourage you and anyone to just dive in there,
Yeah.
and you would find too that you're going to learn a whole lot about yourself, about your family, about the past that you didn't even realize.
Yes. Absolutely. I don't. I have this story. I told you it's on my heart. I can't wait to write it, and you're just motivating me to write it.
Awesome. Yes. And I look forward to reading it too. Don't get frustrated,
Mhm.
with not being able to find the research that you're looking for, or the records rather that you're looking for. I would just say, yeah, go for it.
Well, that's really good advice. So somebody who does want to attack, and I'll say attack because this is a huge project, a project like this, how do they get started? What is your advice for getting started?
My advice for getting started is to get started. And I say that because, start with an outline. So, you know, I have a different method. I know the beginning and I know the end, but I may not know the middle.
Mm,
And so that's how I begin, and I fill in the gaps with my with an outline. And I would say also find out as much as possible, in terms of like interviews with, records that you might be able to find from the Library of Congress, um, museums, things of that nature. Do as much research as you can. Make notes. I would also encourage writing certain things down. There's just something that happens
yeah.
neurologically
Actually,
that
physically writing, you're talking about.
exactly. Yeah, physically write notes. And it doesn't matter if it's like what I do, like I have like I buy these really nice notebooks. And it looks like it's leather bound, but it's actually I should grab one, but it looks like it's leather bound, but it's not. And so that's how I treat my stories. I treat my stories as though, it's there's precious content inside. So find like this really nice notebook or something that you're going to keep, that you're going to write notes in. I would also encourage all kinds of sticky notes. So I have like packs of different sticky notes. So each color represents something else. The
Oh, that's a
grit,
great
the
idea.
Oh yeah, the yellow might represent, characters. So if you want to put characters and their characteristics on the yellow sticky notes, or if the pink represents the setting, and these are the notes you want to put into your binder or your notebook. So that's also a tactic that you can use. Um, yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. So I mean, I would say start there, and just go for it. Don't get discouraged. Um, have a specific date in mind of when you would like to publish it.
And then work toward that.
And work towards that. Yeah. For me, it was I felt as though the book was actually published. Song of Redemption was published in 2022, and I felt as though there was something in me saying that this history needs to be told. And I don't know if it had something to do with the comic book villain in chief being being in office, at the time, but but historically, with the erasure of, or the attempted erasure of history, I
Mhm.
felt as though I was racing towards something. I felt as though, our generation and future generations needed to know this information. And so whatever your goal is, whatever your deadline is, stick with that and race towards it.
Okay. Now, I don't know if you see Mark's question on the screen. He asked if you've ever considered turning Song of Redemption into a motion picture. I mean, you almost did with that audiobook with the actors that you had voicing.
Yeah, and that's been a goal of mine for quite some time. So it's just really all a matter of, someone wanting to pick up the screenplay, or pick up the book and contacting me. My contact information is right on my page. Right on my website, malikajstevely.com. I would love, love, love for it to be a movie, because I feel as though there's just something that happens visually. You can, when you pick up a book, and you can envision, what the people look like and everything in your mind, or what they might have gone through. There's some people who may not necessarily have, that capability. They might need to see something visual in order for it to stick. And so this is one of those times where, I would love for this to be a movie and have it stick, because there's a lot of things within the book that that are, happening even now. It's affecting us to this day. So yeah. And with the audiobook is very, it really brings it to life. The actors are phenomenal. So you have Kay Gervais, who is one of our voice actors. She's the primary voice actor, who's just, I mean, she just, and she, the funny thing about this is that she asked to do this. And so I was a part of the audition process. I don't even know where she came from, but she was just like, I need to do this. She was just like, this is the type of book that I've been really wanting to narrate. So I was just like, okay, you got to go through the audition process like everybody else. And lo and behold, she just blew everybody else out the water. She was just
Oh, she
phenomenal.
came ready.
She sure did. And, she knew that it was going to be a challenge, and I knew it was going to be a challenge because of the amount of characters there are in this book. And in order for her to bring each of the different characters and their personalities to life, I was just like, girl, I don't know how you're going to do this, but she did it. And then you have Cliff St. Laurent, who is just, he was another one who asked to do this, because see, here's the thing. He was the dialect coach for Song of Redemption, because there's a lot of there's Creole in the book. And so I was very, very particular about somebody who can speak the language,
Yes.
and who can speak it preferably fluently. And here comes Cliff. Cliff I met through a genealogist named Mr. or Dr. Christophe Landry. So thank you, Dr.
Okay.
Christophe Landry, for putting me in touch with Cliff St. Laurent. And so Cliff, yeah, so he said he just happened to say, hey, well, I'm an actor too, right? And I was like, yeah, but I didn't know if you wanted to be part of it. And he said, yeah, I want to be a part of it. So, I mean, and again, like he really brought those male characters to life. I mean, he was just
Yes.
phenomenal. So big shout out to Kay Gervais and Cliff St. Laurent.
Wow. I mean, and everybody wants their book to be an audiobook. Not everybody finds the people who can bring the characters to life like you did. So I would say that you're very I don't want to say fortunate, but you're blessed to have been able to get such caliber people.
Yeah, thank you. And that, yeah, that took a lot of praying, because because um yeah, and that too is a part of my writing process. So it was also part of the audiobook process too. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, I always pray before I write, and even with the audiobook, I prayed before, diving into
Yeah.
that whole process, because I knew it wasn't going to be easy, especially as an indie author. And so yeah, so I learned a lot. I worked with a studio, wonderful studio out in Atlanta, and they just handled everything just beautifully. Yeah, so the process in terms of, and that was the other thing, that so they had their own cast of people, and so when I came to them, I said, oh no, we already got our folks. I needed somebody who can speak French, who can speak Creole, and yeah, we were set. We were really set, and I do feel blessed, and yeah, I'm just very, very gracious.
Well, for those of you who are just joining us, We are talking with author Malika Stevely. She is the author of Song of Redemption, an award-winning historical fiction novel. But even though it's fiction, there is so much realism in it, so much authenticity. And we talked earlier in the episode about the care that she put into making sure that everything was factually correct. Because this
Mhm.
is fiction. You could have said, okay, I'm going to make up my own world. But you wanted to make sure that people walked away with something real when they read this story.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, yeah, and I wanted people to realize that yeah, it's, things have changed, but have they? Have they? And so we're seeing that today. We're seeing the importance of history. We're seeing the importance of books and testimonies and things like that, from people who have lived way back when and experienced certain things. So that was one of my main goals, is to shine a light on, even though it was history, it still affects us to this day. So and we we even see it, I'm going to try not to get so political, but we see it with families being torn apart and everything today, which has happened to many of our ancestors as well. So there's history repeats itself, and the more people understand that, the more that they'll understand the importance of history.
Absolutely. Now, I was watching you on Instagram about a month or so ago. I forgot exactly when it happened, but people started tagging you on the slave plantation that burned down mysteriously in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm.
Stop it,
you
Malik.
know that was one of those times, and it's I was trying not to smirk when it happened, because I understand how it does affect people, especially people who work there. So I so I get it. But and as it was kind of an interesting situation, because as somebody who's just so involved in history, I see the importance of plantations,
Mhm.
especially plantations that are that really tell the correct story, and
Yeah, like the
and
Whitney plantation.
exactly, yeah, like the Whitney plantation. I mean, and they're an example of those who do it right. They humanize those who lived on that land. They
Mhm.
acknowledge the things that happened on that land. Um, this plantation that burned down, they did not acknowledge it. And I've been on other
Yeah.
plantations and tours where they didn't acknowledge it, or they say, "Oh, we don't know how the slaves were treated." Yeah, we have no information about this and that. Um, so those types of plantations, it infuriates me because they want to
Yeah.
have the nice weddings on the plantations and the parties and all of these
Yeah, well,
grand
they
things.
they have romanticized this period of time where everybody thinks it's so cool to wear your big dresses and your hats with your little fans and be a Southern Belle for a couple hours while you get people
Hmm.
of color to serve you food because you want to look authentic. And so they've
Hmm.
romanticized the whole thing. They don't realize, or they don't care, I should say, how painful a period of time that was for so many people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's so frustrating. And one thing I would like to know what the training manual says for those tour guides,
Oh wow.
because I specifically remember going to one plantation when I was in Louisiana, and I won't name any names. But I went to one plantation, and I was with some friends. And my other friends and my husband were just like, nah, we're not going because we're just gonna get mad. So so I said, well, we'll go. So I told my friends, you guys don't I'm very intuitive. So, I'll go to certain places and there's certain times when I can feel things. Whether I know exactly what happens or not. So I told my friends, hey, if I start to feel anything, then just ignore me. And so so we get there, and there's one of the tour guides, and she's got her big hoop skirt on, and she's dressed the part and everything, and she's going around and she's talking about the family of this home, and she's talking about this and that, no mention of the slaves, who lived on that plantation, and
Mm-hmm.
and basically built that house and everything around it. um, and so I remember, thinking, oh gosh, what if I go to a specific area and I start to feel, um, you know, my, what if I start to feel those who are enslaved? I didn't know how that was going to affect me. So we go into the big house, and we go into the parlor, and I'm standing. So there's two portraits, two paintings. There's one of the slave owner that I'm standing underneath, and I
Mm-hmm.
started to feel something immediately. And
Mm.
so the more I moved closer to the painting of his wife, I start bawling, and I could not, I start crying just uncontrollably. Um, And so this tour guide, she's looking at me in the corner of her eyes, but she's still smiling, and she's telling this story about the people who lived here and whatnot. And
She was
my
getting
friend had
nervous, and so she said, "Let me just keep going." She was getting nervous when she saw you crying.
right, and so, or maybe it's happened to other people, and she's just like, "Oh, it's happening again." So, so she, yeah, and so my friend takes me over to the side, and so and I was fine when I left that room. And so what I learned was that in that room there was so much that had happened. There was so much death that had happened in that room, and there were three funerals that occurred in that room also.
Oh
And it
wow.
was three of her children, three of the mistress's children who died, and they had their funerals in that particular room. And so all this time I'm thinking, oh, I was thinking I was going to feel, those who were enslaved. I had no idea I was going to feel, this mistress. And so that in itself just, that just blew my mind. And it happened again recently, when I was in, oh gosh, Beaufort, South Carolina.
Yes.
And I was at the place where they had the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation, and did not know that. And so because I had gone on the Gullah Geechee tour, and so I get off the little bus, and we're crossing this bridge to go onto this land. And the same thing happens again. Like, I felt so many emotions, and I just could not stop crying. And I said, what happened? Was this the plantation? What happened here? And so the tour guide, who was black, and she said, yeah, she said, this used to be, I forgot the name of the plantation. She said, yeah, this used to be a plantation, and this was also the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation. And I
Wow.
said, okay, no wonder. I said, because it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, this was even stronger than what I felt over at the plantation, or over in the big house in Louisiana. And so she said, she said, well, it's not unusual that you're feeling something there. She said, because yesterday we were taking pictures. We were taking pictures of the different markers, so that they'll know, what happened on this mark, what happened there. And she said, they were showing pictures to people, and somebody said, well, who are all of these people in this picture? And they looked at the picture, and there were like silhouettes of, I'm assuming, those who were enslaved. So yeah, that just still just gives me the chills
I'm
when I
sure.
when I think about it.
When did
So
you start to feel this sensitivity like this? Has this always been a part of you, or has it been since you started studying this? Because you were researching the book for 10 years before
mhm.
you started writing.
Yeah, no, it's always been a part of me ever since I was a kid. So
Wow.
yeah, so it's, and it's one of those things that kind of runs through my family anyway. It happened to my grandmother, occasionally my mom. We had an aunt who, she would just go around telling people, what's going to happen to them. So it really, but my grandmother, she would have dreams that would, come true. So yeah, so it wasn't unusual, for this to be passed down to me. But
Hmm.
yeah, this is something that I've always had.
Wow. Well, those of you who are watching and you want to get a copy of this book, I have links for not only the paperback, but also the audiobook. And we were just talking about the audiobook. I have the paperback, but I'm thinking I might have to go ahead and get the audiobook. I just want to hear the actors
Yeah.
just voice this incredible story. So I'm
Yeah, you
excited about
gotta you gotta hear the actors. And that was the other thing too. It's like, I was like, okay, I would love to have somebody who can have that Louisiana accent, because one of my biggest fears was always, somebody who's from Louisiana who's be like, that ain't no real accent, or whatever the case
I
is.
probably I probably would have said that's why I can't watch what is that NCIS
Yeah.
NCIS New Orleans. I can't watch it
uh,
because those fake accents, that's all I hear, and I can't even follow the storyline. So where's
yeah,
the NCIS or see it, whatever it is, the one in New Orleans, and I
I know
was an
what you
extra on
mean.
a number of those episodes too.
Oh wow, look at that. See, now I'm gonna go
What?
look for you too in some of those episodes.
So now tell me, because we are running short on time, but do you
Okay.
have any more appearances? Because we've run into each other a few times over the past year.
Well, yeah, so I'm gonna be doing a number of things. If you're in the Charlotte area, I'm doing a Meet the Author, the Publishers Panel edition. And so it's gonna be myself and a number of other four other really talented authors, and they're going to be talking about their publishing journey. And this is specifically for those who either are new in their noveling, being a novelist, uh, so who are new in that journey, or those who are thinking about it. And so there's authors of various genres. I'm the only one who's the historical fiction author, and I think the only one who has an audiobook. But yeah, so I'm going to be sharing all of that information, or as much as I can, within the 2 hours that we have for that. Um, and then I'm also doing a number of I'm being a guest for a number of book clubs,
Oh,
and
wonderful!
oh yeah, I
The book
love
clubs
doing
have
that.
embraced you, haven't they?
They really have. I love me some book clubs because we start getting into these conversations and we start talking about genealogy and history and social events. And it's just, we get into some deep conversations. We had, and real quick, I'll make this real quick because I know we're short on time. But we were talking about genealogy, and we were talking about how it factors into or can factor into your writing, and how it factors into your life. Even today, and so there were two ladies who were in the same book club and they kind of knew each other but not really. Well, we started talking and come to find out those two women were cousins. And so it
Wow.
was just, yeah. So it's things like that, or it's, people coming back to me saying, "Hey, my mom told me that this happened to her, back in, whenever." And that, I never would have thought to even ask her these particular questions. So yeah, so we get into these really cool conversations. I had a conversation with Kerry Washington in one of the book clubs, and we were talking about 6888. And one of the things I asked
Wow.
her was, what a lot of people didn't know that their ancestors were, or their great grandmothers and grandmothers were a part of the 6888. How did that even happen? And she shared that there were some rumors that were started, during World War II, that all of these beautiful Black women who came overseas to serve, that they were there being prostitutes, that they were doing, all kinds of stuff. And so there was like this horrible stigma that landed on, these service women who were part of 6888. And so yeah, so I say all that to say we get into these really deep conversations that open a whole new world to history and our lives as African Americans.
Um, I had the pleasure of going to the ceremony when the six
Mm,
triple eight finally received their honors. Um,
wow.
and I'm telling you, it was just amazing to see so many families come out and
Mm,
holding the picture of their soldier.
wow.
Yes,
Look
it
at
was. Yes,
that.
it was a beautiful moment. So
Wow.
I'm really glad that I got to be a part of that. My sorority Zeta Phi Beta, we supported it. We were escorting people to their seats. We got to meet many of the family members. I mean, it was just a surreal
Mm,
experience. We got to meet the author of the book. you know, so
wow. Who was that? She was at the National Book Club conference too.
yeah, she was. I missed her,
Oh
but I'm
wow.
Yeah, but I'm glad she was there, though. More people need to know about this story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, well, I'm glad you had that opportunity because that's invaluable. And that's something else that, you can add to a book, that you
Absolutely.
were there to witness that recognition finally.
Yes.
Finally.
After all this time.
Yes. Oh,
And
that's amazing.
and Senator Mike Johnson was there and Hakeem
Mm,
Jeffries was there. It was interesting. Oh,
wow.
Nancy Pelosi was sitting in the audience.
Was she?
Yes.
That is incredible.
Well, Mark
Wow.
said he's ashamed to say that he didn't know about them until that movie came out. But don't feel ashamed
Yeah.
because a lot of people didn't know these women's stories. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that the movie, well, first of all, that the book was written, but that the movie was made because it educated so many more people as to what we weren't just spectators. We were
Mm-hmm.
actually in the service of our country.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, and in so many different areas, not just mail carriers either. And like I said, before, a lot of the service women, their families didn't even know that they were a part of 688, you know.
Right.
So yeah, so this was amazing, and this is the importance of books. This is the importance of writing our stories and knowing our history,
Right.
because you leave it up to textbooks, which are now starting to become like lost cause books. So you leave it up to textbooks, or you leave it up to certain administrations, and you probably wouldn't have been able to even know some of these things. So yeah, so it's so important that we tell our own stories and we tell it correctly, because we're not only teaching it to each other, we're teaching it to the world.
The griot
um,
tradition is more important than ever right now.
mhm,
We've got to tell our stories, and not just writing books. I mean, and we're both authors on this show. We want people to write books, but that oral storytelling tradition has got to
mhm,
stick with us. Um,
mhm,
we've got to sit down at our elders' feet and listen to their stories so we can pass those stories on. Because if they die with their stories, a huge part of our history dies along with them. And then we,
mhm,
we lose ourselves, we lose who we are. So it's
mhm.
very important for us to continue to just listen to our elders. Just let them talk. And you're
Yeah.
just gonna learn so much.
Yeah, and as Alice Walker says, history is a keeping of records. And so when you are speaking to the elders, make sure you record it. Make sure you write it, you type it,
Yes,
you record them talking about it. It could be audio, recording, it could be a video recording, preferably video, and make copies of it. That was one thing that I did when I started at the age of 7 doing genealogy. That was one thing that fascinated me, and I needed to record these things. And so I would encourage anybody to keep these records and be able to tell their stories correctly and pass it on.
yes,
There are people in other countries. When I meet people from other countries and they know our history, that's the thing that really gives me so much joy, is when they know our history. And you have so many people here who would tell us either to forget it or get over it, or they try to
right.
diminish it or
That was in
erase
the
it.
past. We can't
Right.
keep saying that.
Cannot keep saying that. So yeah, write those stories. Record that history as much as possible. Write your own history as well. Write, write
Yes,
about yourself, and
yes.
pass that along.
Well, Malika, I don't know how this hour went by so quickly. I mean, there's so much more that you can say about your work and about your book. I do want to know, is there another book in the works?
Yes, there is another book, and it's another historical fiction. It's not going to take as long to it's not going to take as long to research or anything. I'm working on it. Um, I'm hoping that it comes out in spring of 2026, but we'll see. I'm
Okay.
crossing my fingers. So yeah, so there's another one in the works, and I'm extremely excited about it. And this one is based on the slave badge that I showed at the
Yes.
event, at the Cream and Ivory
Mhm.
event during the Black History Month weekend.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot of records that I'm able to find, and I'm thrilled to be able to share what I found.
I'm looking forward to reading that. I got to get myself ready for it. And hopefully you'll come back and do the contest again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will definitely come back, and yeah, so I'm excited.
Well, I'm excited for you. Congratulations once again on
Thank you.
all of the success you've had with this book. Um, and thank you. And you already had the writing experience being a journalist, but taking that journalism experience putting it into research, and in writing such a powerful novel that celebrates a young woman who most likely died way too soon.
Mhm.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to talk about it. That was my hope and my prayer to be able to give her a voice. And so in you allowing me to come on here and other platforms, you have helped in that process. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. Now, anybody, if you're gonna watch the replay, hit hashtag replay. Let us know that you watched it. Let us know what you thought, because I'm telling you, Malika has a powerful story in and of herself, but the book is powerful just as well. So whether you want the paperback or you want the audiobook, the links to both formats are going to be below. So just make sure you click those links and purchase that book. Let's support our stories.
Thank you. Yeah, it also comes in hardcover and ebook for those
Oh
for
yeah,
my ebook
that's
readers
right.
as
We're talking
well.
about paperback and audio, but we have hardcover and ebook as well. Yes.
Yes.
But so once again, if you can just give a plug, because we're actually about to open nominations for the 2025 For the Culture Book Awards. So there's going to be a whole new group of authors who are coming
Yeah.
in to compete. And I know
Yeah.
Mark Bolterdorp is watching right now. He was
Hey,
our
Mark.
third place winner of the contest. Yay! So um, why should people get into this contest? Why should a fiction author decide to be a part of the For the Culture Book Awards?
Well, because there are, you have a number of book awards, but how many of them will celebrate us? How many will celebrate our culture and just the just how multifaceted we are. So I would say, if not for that reason alone, then I mean that in itself is amazing. So I would say do it because of that, and then also do it because you are also going to meet a number of wonderful authors. You're going to get to know some of the other books that have been written. You're going to read some of the other books that some of the other contestants have released and published. So there's that, and then also, I mean, it's a wonderful prize package. I
The
mean,
prizes. We're talking
I mean,
cash. We're talking publicity. There's so much.
just and having things like a press release written for you, and just the whole package of having a one sheet, and things that authors need. You have that right there at your fingertips. So I mean, there's just so many things that are actually just so invaluable that you would gain, if for winning this, being the recipient of this award. So yeah.
Well,
So
thank
yeah.
you for being our first winner. I
Sure.
appreciate you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the judges and everyone who supported me. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, if you want to be in the 2025 version of the For the Culture Book Awards, nominations open September 1st. That's not that far away. So get your books
Mm-mm.
ready. Get your get your manuscripts ready. What is that? What did Mark just say? He said we made history and paved the path for other authors to participate in the For the Culture Book Awards. Yes, you did, Mark. Thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Now, Malika, you keep doing great things. I'm glad to know there's another book coming out. I'm glad to know you have some appearances coming up. There are lots of chances for people to meet you. But right now, we just want you to click those links, purchase those books. Let's make sure this book stays a huge part of literary conversation.
And please, after you read the book and when you enjoy the book, please put in a review as well. So you can do so if you purchase the book through Amazon or whichever platform. You can put in your review as well. So I would greatly appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. Well, once again, thank you. You have a great night, and may God continue to bless everything that you do.
Thank you. Same to you. God bless you.
Bye bye.
Bye.